Tortora in our Heritage Hill travel studios. We're down here at the AAC Kickoff in Arlington, Texas. And in our coverage of the American since before a name or a logo was here with the conference, I want to thank the American Athletic Conference for all that they've done in making sure that Wake Up Call has an entire scope of all of the institutions, Tulane Green Wave being one of those. And I'm here with head coach Jon Sumrall, and you had the opportunity to be shouted out by the commissioner, Tim Pernetti, of a new face that we have here. So what's that like to know that in a conference where we have seen different faces come through, there's not a ton of new ones now? Jeff Monken coming in with Army as an institution, and then Willie Fritz moving to another job, and you coming in here, but you're no stranger to Tulane, and now you're here in the American, so welcome.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. What was it like to have a little shout out from the commissioner?
Yeah, it's good. I've been very impressed with Tim's leadership. Really enjoyed getting to know him. Seems like a first-class guy. And to get called out by the boss is kind of a cool deal. But really excited about the direction he's taking our conference. It was fun to get to hear him talk this morning. I get to sit in there and listen to his remarks, and I think we have a really bright future with his leadership.
What is it about his leadership that makes you believe in the future of it?
I think his energy and his passion, it's authentic and real. You can feel it. I think he's got a unique background where he's got the college athletic side. He's got sort of the media side. And I think he's really, one of the things I've heard him say a few times now is there's really nothing off the table. We're going to consider all things about what's best for our league moving forward. And sometimes that may mean thinking outside the box, but just continuing to figure out how can we be cutting edge, how can we push our league forward and do great things that are new and unique.
And looking at this interesting climate, right? We have NIL, we have the transfer portal, we have, as I said to Mike Oresco a while back, I said coaches and institutions have been in the transfer portal before student athletes.
Right.
Now they're all in the transfer portal on top of this NCAA ruling, this settlement, essentially talking about 22% and what that's going to look like, and schools having to find these funds. Obviously, you want to build up what you have on campus, your facilities. You want to create opportunities and experiences. You have to take care of the buildings that are there housing the classrooms. And so there's so much to say about what you already have to do and the arms race, so to speak, in that respect. Now you have to generate this money and make sure that it goes to this certain place. So as a coach, I know that there's a lot of things that are happening that involve a ton of people, but this does hit home for you because your student athletes could be talking about, I can make money here, I can make X here, Y there. The transfer portal has given us free agency. There's no year in residency. You can transfer 4 times in 4 years, 5 times in 4 years. So how do you address all of that when you're trying to keep a team and a culture consistent?
Yeah, I think first, when it comes to the team and culture standpoint, it's about having real authentic relationships and knowing your players. I've always felt like pre-transfer portal, pre-NIL, I felt like as a coach, I couldn't coach a player to be his best if I didn't know the player and know their story and maybe their background and what mattered to them, what was their why. And so I think that hasn't changed. I'm a firm believer that from a leadership position, you can either be a transformational leader or a transactional leader. And when you're a leader that's focused on transformational change, it's how can I help the person I'm here serving? When it's transactional, it's what can I get out of them for my benefit? And so at the end of the day, as a coach, our job is to serve and develop our players. And I think if you focus on what can I do to serve and develop our players, a lot of that stuff gets a lot easier. Now, it doesn't get solved. It doesn't get resolved. There's still issues. But I think as you work through those issues, there can be a lot less uncertainty and uncomfortable feeling because hey, I'm in the bunker with somebody that cares about me. And so that's the environment we try to create at our place. And then, there is such a moving target right now, and where is all this going to land? I don't think anybody really knows. Your resourcing dictates some of that. There is a lot of challenges that face university leadership in regards to the financial resources that we're going to have to try to make connect. And, everything you do matters. So, I tell people all the time, we need people to be giving to the university and NIL. All right. And what that means is we need facilities. We need the infrastructure to support our players. We need all of it to be our best. Now, what is that, the balance? I think each place is a little bit different, a little bit unique, and you have to work through that and identify where is that sweet spot.
Yeah. And for you, like you said, and you led right into what I was thinking about here, is as long as you're a relationship builder, it doesn't really matter what type of change happens in the world, because people will always appreciate working with people that they enjoy being around. So for you, coming into this team, coming into the Tulane Green Wave and being the head coach, why for you did you feel that this was the right fit, this was the right place, based on who they are, what they've been, what they're becoming? Why Tulane?
Yeah, it's, the obvious, the city of New Orleans, the uptown community, very vibrant, culturally one of the most unique cities in the world. Then you partner that with world-class academics. Our academic experience and those opportunities are special. And then what's happened recently to create some momentum on the field, I think, showed me, all right, there's a pathway to be successful. I think the best indicator of future success is oftentimes past success. And it's hard to believe a place can have success if it hasn't done it. This place has done it very recently. Now, there's been some dry spells in Tulane's history, too. The biggest turnaround in college football was the Cotton Bowl year. And so the year before that, it wasn't exactly like they were just rolling. But to know that that has already been started, and I think that helped kind of light a fire amongst our campus community and a lot of people that care about our university, that, hey, football can create a great deal of value for this university. And it's about the college experience as well. Our students get to be a part of major college football at a really elite academic institution. And so seeing all that kind of come together, meeting with the leadership at Tulane as I went through the process on the job, I had to interview, but I also was trying to get some questions answered myself to make sure it was going to be a good fit, because I think that fit part matters. And so many of those things had to get shown to me. But as you go through that process, every intersection there was a green light, and another green light, another green light. And anytime I thought there might be a yellow, it didn't turn red, it turned green. And so it just kind of kept checking the boxes that I felt like needed to be checked for me to feel like it was a good fit for myself, our staff, and how we could serve our players.
When you say that the lights kept being green and they were checking the boxes, what were some of those lights that you were looking for?
A commitment to continue to grow and develop from a facility standpoint. We just renovated the Wilson Center, which is our headquarters for athletic department and football activities. We just put several $1 million in that building. I've been kicked out of my office in that building from the end of January until I just moved back in on Monday, and so yesterday. So the facility upgrades. We've got the plans of the bubble coming. So we have an indoor practice facility that'll be about 80 yards, which is much needed. We're building, on the horizon, we're in the process of raising money for a new football performance center, which it's a big project. We're looking at north of $50 million on that project, and so that's something that we're pushing towards. And when I met with the leadership of the university, I was shown, hey, this is what our plans look like. This is what we are doing. This is where this is going. I didn't get everything on an exact timeline, like, hey, it's going to be this exact date, but I got general targets of like, hey, this is when we'd like to try to move this along. And so those things helped me see that. Knowing, our players, we have the Green Wave Grill, which is in our stadium. It's about 30 feet from our locker room. And they got breakfast, lunch, and dinner in our building during the season. So it's like, that's a pretty good setup. So I was shown the resourcing that was available and provided to our players, and the commitment that helped me kept saying, all right, this is a good situation.
We're here in Arlington for the AAC Kickoff, and just a couple minutes away is AT&T Stadium. AT&T Stadium is the home of the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. I want to shout out the director of communications for that, Scotty Rogers, who's a good friend. I was at that game with the Tulane Green Wave and the USC Trojans. Caleb Williams, who would become the number 1 overall pick, and Michael Pratt, who I have already said repeatedly was a massive steal on day 3 of the 2024 NFL Draft. And I will stick by that. Shout out to the Green Bay Packers for being intelligent. So Patrick Jenkins, Michael Pratt, and the crew, Tajay Spears, who's obviously in Tennessee with the Titans, that team did what a lot of people thought was the unthinkable, but I walked into that building believing that Tulane can hang because I believe in the American.
Yeah.
Seeing that, and you being the coach coming here and being a part of the AAC kickoff, when that's happened so recently, Arlington is a special place because it's a place where we have seen that the American, once again, when it comes to New Year's 6, can hang with the best of them and hang with these institutions that have been known all over the country, all over the world. What does that mean to you, knowing that Tulane has created such a great history recently, and that when you come back to Arlington, you know that Tulane, I don't know if you know this, but downtown in Dallas, they had a projector on a hotel that put Tulane's name, and when you won, it was right front and center for all the people of Dallas.
Yeah, I think it just speaks to this conference as a whole. And I also think it goes back to what Tulane has accomplished and what we can do moving forward. I think it just reinforces that we can do things at a really high level and the highest level. And that's what our focus is constantly pursuing our best.
Yeah.
I think that just gives you a vision for what can be accomplished. And with the access now to the college football playoff, I think that just only excites you even more about, hey, we can go past just a bowl game. We can get in the playoff too.
Yeah.
And that access is awesome to see. So, I'm really grateful for what's already been started here, and I look forward to building upon it.
I look at your schedule, and when I was doing the prelude into the 2024-25 season, arguably just the layout of your schedule of the 14 institutions in the American, I've argued, is the toughest. You have to start the season playing 6 straight weeks. 3 of those weeks are going to be on the road, 3 out of 4 after your first 2 at home. Then you have your first bye week. Then you play 5 games straight with 3 of those 5 on the road. And then you have a second to last week of the season. You're going to have a bye week, and then you play at home again. Would you agree with me that looking across this, I don't think there's no one else that has a schedule quite like yours that has the road leading into the bye and then a ton of road again leading into a very late bye. Your thoughts?
It is challenging. I haven't looked at everybody else's and assessed what theirs looks like. I think non-conference wise, start with Southeastern Louisiana, an in-state program, which I think it's good for our state that we play them. They had a down year last year, but we're in the FCS playoffs the previous couple years before that.
Yeah.
And Coach Selfo does a great job, and so that'll be a really good test. And then Kansas State, Oklahoma, and Louisiana Lafayette. I would put our non-conference schedule against any of our peers, and argue it's got to be as challenging as anybody out there. And playing the 2 Kansas State and Oklahoma back-to-back weeks, that's a buzzsaw a little bit. We got to be prepared. There's not going to be a whole lot of warm-up or time to kind of ease into things.
Yeah.
And then the conference slate's a challenge. And I do think you're right with sometimes, how the buys fall. Nobody asked my opinion on where we should get them. But I might have placed them selfishly in a different spot or two. But you get what you get, and you make the most of it. And I'm excited about the challenges we have. I think if you're a competitor, that gets you fired up. You're not looking to play against easy opponents. I think the challenging schedule makes you even want to work harder.
You brought 2 guys here with you. Before we jump into rapid fire, where you get to put me on the hot seat a little bit, I mentioned Patrick Jenkins, who I had the opportunity to speak with and had a heck of a stance, many plays in the game right down the road at AT&T Stadium for the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, but a huge one down the stretch. And Vincent Murphy, who you brought in here, is it time to say roll wave over roll tide?
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah.
Because there's a specific thing there, too, with Vincent as well of getting him here.
Yeah, so, the story on Vinny's interesting. He's from St. Thomas Aquinas in South Florida, went to South Carolina high school. His offensive line coach was Eric Wolford. Wolfie's a good friend of mine. He ended up transferring after Muschamp left. Shane Beamer came in. He transferred a year later to Western Kentucky. And ironically, when Vinny was at Western Kentucky and I was at Troy, we played him the last 2 years. And so we knew him well from playing against him. Got the job at Tulane. We lost our starting center off of last year's team at Tulane, Sincere Hainsworth. Yeah. And so we were really in the market for adding another center that it had in-game experience. And so Vinny kind of fit that bill and thought he was coming, felt good about where we were at in his recruitment of getting him to come from Western Kentucky. And then early January, I believe it was January 2nd, his high school coach, Roger Harriet, called and said, "Hey, I'm sorry it didn't work out with Vinny." And I'm like, "Hang on, what are you talking about? I thought he was coming." And he goes, "Well, Nick Saban called him today, and I think he's going to go to Alabama." And I'm like, "What?" And I'm sitting there driving. I'm on I-10. I'll never forget where I was. And I'm like, he's going to Alabama. Dadgum. Thought we had him. And then a couple days later, Nick Saban retires, and now Vinny's at Tulane. So pretty cool recruiting story how that works. But he's been an incredibly hard worker, been very consistent. His peers voted him on our leadership council. He's one of the highest vote getters on our team on the leadership council after showing up in January. Yeah. He won an off-season strength and conditioning award from January to May because of his effort in the weight room. And so I think it's been neat to see, it really is reflective of this day and age in college football, how you make a team integrate and really become one and care about each other is you have a guy like Vinny who's new, and then you also talk about a guy like Pat's from New Orleans, went away originally, went to TCU and has come back home, has been a part of the success the last couple of years. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you have been there for 2 years, doesn't matter if you're from New Orleans, doesn't matter if you just showed up and you're from South Florida, we're all on the same team. And so to be able to bring two linemen, an O lineman and a D lineman, and to bring a guy that's been on the team for the last couple of years and a newer guy on our team, I think is really a great picture of what college football looks like now.
And building from the inside out in the trenches is how you win championships.
That's right.
So coaches never get to ask the questions. On Wake Up Call, you do. So you get to put me on the hot seat, Coach. We're going to go back and forth for a few. Could be football or could be anything in the world. What do you got for me? What's your first question?
All right, first question. Who was your best interview today? Challenging.
No, it is challenging. Everyone's been really unique, and they always are. So the American I'm never at a loss of talented people or people with great personalities and care. I'm going to say, my goodness. Well, okay, I'm going to say this one because of my connection with my family. I've waited a long time to link up with Jeff Monken in Army. Yeah. So I'm going to say him because I got to tell him the story of World War II and my grandfather on my dad's side that was 18 years old, Ralph Tortora Jr., who was in the Army in World War II in Germany, front lines, and then my great-uncle Vincent, who was in Japan, and my great-uncle Bucky, who was captured. He was in Germany, captured and sent to Auschwitz, and they all made it home.
How about that?
So to get to talk with Jeff, and we have a mutual friend in Bob Beretta, that was cool. But I can't pick person-wise, I can't. Yeah. But to be able to tell him that story was
I respect that selection. So Monk, we've played Army the last 2 years at Troy. Yeah. We played there in 23. We played up at Army, which is one of the coolest road venues to play at. And after we played them in 22. We won 10-9. I mean, it was like a rock fight. And in 23, we won. We played a lot better than we did the year before. We won the last 2 years, and after that game last year, I was kidding around with Jeff. We talked on the phone the next week because Jeff and I have become friends through that series. Yeah. And I said, I'm just glad we're not playing y'all anymore. Yeah. And then I took this job in this league. We're not playing them this year, but now I'm going to have to deal with them again at some point. I'm like, golly, I thought I was getting away from Army because they play the game so tough. I got another question. Who'd you pick to win the league? A little pressure there. Who do you got winning the league?
Yeah, so I was asked this question multiple times before today. The thing I love about the American is that there's no true, this is the team every year. And I think the fact that I've seen so many different champions speaks to the fact that this conference is a lot more exciting and feels like the roll of a dice sometimes. So I had gone into today thinking UTSA, also had Memphis as kind of like, I didn't know that the majority of the media was going to pick Memphis. So I had Mike Norvell and Justin Fuente before that. What they built is tremendous. So, and I know Silverfield and Norvell are going up against each other this year in non-conference play. So I was living in the world of feet to the fire at the moment. I said UTSA. I also, and I'm not saying this because you're sitting next to me, but there was literally like 3 or 4 teams that I'm like, I can't 100% say it's this or that. But I was told years ago, and I forget who said it to me, but I was in Rhode Island, and Willie Fritz was standing a few feet from me. And this guy came up to me and he goes, "You see that guy right there?" He goes, "That guy right there," pointed right to Willie. He goes, "He's won everywhere he's been. Mark my words, he's going to win here like he's won everywhere else." And that guy was right. And so I put Tulane in like this circled area of maybe they fly under the radar now because they think, oh, Willie's gone, so what does that mean? And I look forward to you giving me more reasons to cheer, because I will tell you, Mike Oresco and I had a very public, very loud embrace after Tulane won in Arlington in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. So if you're asking me feet to the fire, I went in thinking UTSA, but there's like 4 teams that I could think about. And I don't think that teams should count you out, but if they do, well, then I look forward to you winning.
I'm okay with them counting us out.
I am very okay with that. And also, I've talked about Tulane and Tulsa with those Oklahoma State games. And if people really watched those games and watched how you've hung with those Big 12 teams and whatnot, I know Oklahoma's in the SEC now, but there's a lot to be said about the level of competition that Tulane brings to these non-conference games. And I don't think that people have really given you the respect that you deserve in those atmospheres. So I look forward to seeing what you can do.
I appreciate it.
What's your last one for me? You get one more. I've taken you completely off the hot seat. Just leaving myself on here.
I had two. You
had
got
2?
me. Yeah, those are my 2.
Let's go food or movies. Give me something in that world.
Yeah, what's your favorite restaurant in New York?
There's a place called Lasca's that's out in Auburn, because I live in upstate in Syracuse. And Lasca's, to this day, huge portions. Through COVID, didn't really raise their prices. And if you get veal parmesan, you get 2 massive pieces of veal with sauce and cheese over the whole thing. And it's like $15.99 for what some people would probably charge like $30 for. Yeah. And when they give you veal, it's usually tucked in a corner. This is like the whole plate. And they have to put the pasta on a different plate.
How about that?
So I'm going to say Lasca's, because their food is great. And growing up as a kid, like if we were celebrating something big, we went to Lasca's.
Nice.
So
awesome.
Say that.
Very cool.
So for the Tulane Green Wave, for Jon Sumrall, and for the entire team, the program, and the beautiful city that I love dearly of New Orleans, Louisiana, pay attention to them this season. And I guess let them fly under the radar for you, but I'll be watching. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. Thank you so much.
Awesome.